Work items, right? Okay. No, we already know what is work item, and work item types we know, right? Can you name few, like bug, requirement? Okay, in different templates we call different ways, like user story can be a PBI in Scrum templates, right? So you know what it is, right? Then we need to know where we are going to manage this stuff, right? So that is the most important thing, like how we are going to manage it. Now we have two major options, like Visual Studio plus uh, the other one, Team Web Access. It was called earlier Team Web Access, but now it is called Web Portal or something like that, right? uh, so the next way of managing is using MS Project, MS Excel, uh, or even using C# code, right? When you know the stuff how to do it, you can manage work items and even create new ones, or whatever, do whatever you want with the API, which is so powerful, so you can do anything, right? So actually, rather than staying on the slides, what I will do is I will take you to the actual uh, team web access or web portal, and we will identify each component there, right? Then we will see how we can create a simple solution, and how to create a build, and how to integrate with when we are checking in, checking out. Now you know the terms now: checking in, checking out, shelving, maybe not 100%, but you know somewhat, right? So we will see how those things get integrated with builds, and how the information is available or visible, right? Okay, first thing is, okay, when we are in Visual Studio, okay, now this is a JIT demo, but I will first do the demo with TFVC, that is Team Foundation Version Control, and then go into the JIT, and I will show you what is still not there in JIT, but I believe they are working on improving them, right? That they have even made comments saying they will bring JIT into the same level of TFVC.
There's a major update coming today.
Yeah.
Currently, the people who have started building applications using C# on iOS and Android, this is a number one priority requirement.
Yeah.
So, and there are large companies who are doing all platforms. So, just being fully compatible with the
Other.
rest of the TFS features is a mandatory requirement.
Actually, no, at the moment what is there is also very promising, like I have done a lot of experiments, those looks also really good, but we will first look at without looking at JIT, we will look at what it is we have with TFS version control, right? Okay, I will be using the online account, so there might be slight performance issues due to my Mobitel connection, right? It's so fast. So we'll select the team project. Now all of you know how to connect to the server, right? You have an idea.
So can I connect to multiple? Can I have multiple accounts?
In Visual Studio,
yeah, same login.
you
I have
have.
about 5 TFS online accounts.
Okay.
පස්සේ තියෙන මචං ඔන්න එක ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එකක වැඩ කර ඉන්නවා. ඉතලා ඊළඟට අනිත් එකට ස්විච් වෙන්න ඕන නම් Visual Studio මෝල් වෙනවා.
Yeah.
ස්විච් වෙන්න ගියාම. මේ සොලියුෂන් තමයි.
Okay. No. Online.
Online උත් තියෙනවා, on premise එකක් තියෙනවා.
On premise it is easy, right? On premise what you have to do is like you need to do this. You need to actually right click here and go into the open file location, and right click here, shift right click here, and run as different user, and use that particular user account and open Visual Studio.
It asks to log in.
Yeah, it asks to log into the TFS then, right? So you can log in using any account.
Right.
So actually you can simultaneously run multiple accounts and do demonstrations and all those things. That is
the customer locations වලට එහෙම ගියාම නේද? So some about the 15ක් විතර ඉන්නවා, they have given access to their TFS.
Yeah.
එතකොට ටක් දාලා හදිස්සියේ ඒකට කනෙක්ට් වෙලා වැඩ කරන්න ගියාම so I have access. ඒ යනකොට මම වෙන account එකකට connect වෙලා ඉන්නේ.
Yeah.
So
So you can do this, right? Then you can run as that particular user and do it. So that will work.
online
Online, it's a bit difficult. but still you can run as a local machine user or something, then it will prompt for some times.
දැන්
Right?
කරන්න මිෂන් ෂෙල් එකක් තියෙනවා Visual Studio user account tie up එක clear කරන්න.
Credential manager.
ඔව් ඒක clear කරලා ආයි log වෙනවා. ආයි ඉතින් ඒකට credits එක download කරනවා. ඒක base එකක් තියෙනවා.
Online not tested. Huh? On premises definitely it works. I have tested and it's really working. That one I'm not 100% sure. I will anyway verify.
AD එකේ ඉන්නවද?
Yes. Yes.
AD එකේ ඉන්නවා. මම බක්කාව යන්නේ මට AD access තියෙන number එක දෙක තුනක. අනිත් එක guest user කෙනෙක් විදියට යන්නේ.
Still that user exists in your machine?
Yeah.
Then it will work. Mostly. Right? Okay. Actually that is not okay. See. It is really fast.
මගේ මේකට connected phone එක.
How can I do that?
wireless factory Lumia 1520 කියලා.
Okay, so I will disconnect this one.
wireless factory වල channel broadcast කරනවා. මට 1520
Connect.
Right. You're holding up.
Okay. Okay, so we'll select the theme project. It is my good old Microsoft account.
Okay.
Right? My whole exams and everything is there, so I have no option to switch.
Right.
If I request that, it would be a, I have to do a lot of things. Request from so many places. It's easy to keep it like that. So this is the latest Scrum project, released 18th of 2 days back to the online. So okay, why this is not connecting, you can understand, right? So you need to again double click here, right? And you get this plug only when you have what? Visual Studio Team Foundation Power Tools installed, right? Then only you get that all the quick access features, right?
Yeah, color icons to quit.
Where color?
Screenshot thing.
I have taken a screenshot.
14 next again there.
CTP, one of the RC.
Update 3 again there.
RC, one of the RC had that. It should be colorful, ne? Okay. Now this thing, right? So we need to go to web portal, right? Okay. So you can click here. It will take you to the web portal. Hopefully it will not ask me to log in again. Yeah. Now we are at the latest project. Now default, when you created a project, it would be just like this, right? You will have some gray areas like this, like okay, doesn't have any information, right? So now our focus is on today on work area and the code area, right? So have you ever seen this before? So have you ever worked with this? Okay. Okay. Now, okay, I have created few work items. Before I go into this, I will go into some administration part and explain few things. Then only you will understand how we are going to use this, right? So do you have any idea of iterations? What is iteration? Okay. If you are running agile, you call it iteration. When you are running in Scrum, you call it sprint. But you call, even though you call in different words, you are actually referring to a period of time that you are working, right? Basically that is that, right? So there are options to define those things, right? So one way is you can define them from here in the administrative mode, right? You can create release 1 and sprint 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Now, why do we create release and sprints like this? Any idea? In practical scenario, what we are doing is we are actually doing releases to the customer, but we will not. I mean, ideally, we should be, if we are following agile into full, or I mean, Scrum or whatever into full practice, we should be releasing shippable software at the end of each sprint. But it's very difficult when it comes into the reality and practicality, right? So what we are doing is normally run 2-3 sprints inside our offices and then trying to do a release. So this supports that as well. So we can keep track of what a release, plus we can keep track of sprints, right? So we can do something like that. So even if you want, you can define so many other, like, I mean, this is a tree, so you can actually create any number of levels, right? But don't make it very complicated when you are doing it for your teams, because if you do that way, it is very difficult to manage, right? Okay, then one more thing, like, you heard of work item queries, right? Now work item, no idea. Okay, so we'll talk about that in few minutes, right? Okay, now this is iterations. Now you understand this part, right? Okay, the next part is areas. Now why do we have areas? Now what is the difference between this iteration and area?
Area is level of
Okay, this can be utilized in several ways. Like you can have, okay, you can use this to group your work items in a different manner. Now iterations will group your work items in a time period, right? So that means, like, okay, if you are running the current sprint, you can identify the work items belonging to that particular sprint using iteration, right? But area you can use to do something like this. Say for example, if you are having a banking project or something like that, a huge application or something like that, where you have different modules, maybe deposits, savings, I mean, there are a lot of, like, fixed deposit, loans and all those things. So you can differentiate them using areas, like simply considering them as modules. That is one option, right? But the real usage of this, I mean, most teams try to do that and go into a lot of troubles. Why? Then, I mean, number of modules, like, expands a lot, right? So if you are trying to use this area for modules, it becomes a huge tree, right? And you lose the real usage of it, right? This area is there for you to use with actually teams, right? Now this, it goes with the team concept actually. Now the team, okay, now what is a team? Okay, team is the set of people working in a particular project or product, right? But always when we are doing large projects, we will have more than one team working on them, right? That means, like, there can be a set of people working on certain area of the project, and there will be other people working on some other module. Maybe they are working on new feature development, the other people are doing the maintenance of the customer, kind of, right? There can be different things. So we might have a requirement to have different. Now initially in a project there will be only initial development, right? So you will be developing, all will be developing and testing new features, so that will be only one team. But as the project is released to the client and you are progressing with time, there may be requirements to maintain the project or product, right? Plus you have to add new features, right? And you have to have a support team which is catering the bug fixes and hot fixes, right? So in that case you need to differentiate those things. So those are the actual areas. Now that is the purpose of this particular area, right? So always it should be like, whenever you create a team here, right? If you go to the overview section, right, now you can see there is this team, right? So it is the default project team. Now it belong, I mean, this default project team is always assigned with this particular area, right? See, same name, right? So if I create another team here, called, okay, we'll try to do that. We'll say we have a support team or something, right? So okay, the permissions, okay, I'll explain what are the contributors and all those things in a minute, but for the time being, just we'll create a support team, right? And if you go into areas, right, you can see there's a support team, and this is the root team, and you can have sub teams, like, okay, we can have a new feature development team, right? So for this purpose, it's better to use area. If you are having subdivisions within that support team, it is okay to have different areas, and maybe you can control access permissions and all those things. We will be discussing that permission managing later, but don't make things too complicated. It's better to go with theme and area in parallel when you are starting. So when you understand the theme foundation, the full permission management, how it works really, only you should move into like changing those stuff.
So areas, is it specific to like, so this iteration or this set of iterations can be looked into one area?
It's
or,
not
or
like
can
that.
we like take different chunks and plug it into an area?
It's actually two independent components in TFS,
Okay.
right? So it works independently. So one iteration and many areas, and many iterations can have many, I mean, so many to many, it's simply, right? So so you have to independently manage these two things very, I mean, very carefully, because
Advantage about area की advantage or depend करता है?
area, the advantage, major advantage is the usage like this, right? Okay, we will come back to the usage in few minutes, but
I wanted to ask the same thing, but I was hoping that you would come to that later.
yeah, because like it's a complex thing for now. I mean, if you try to understand it right now, it will be a complex thing. So we will create another team, and another area will be automatically created. So we will leave it like that, and we will go to the work items and see how it appears in different teams and different backlogs. Then you will understand the usage, right? Okay. Okay, so we will create another team called, we'll say feature development team or something. Okay, we'll call it dev team. Doesn't matter, right? Okay, so we have two teams in our projects, say support and dev, right? So those two teams have different areas. Okay, now this project manager or somebody who is managing this entire project want to know the entire picture, that is the this particular Scrum team, right? But who are assigned to the dev area, like, okay, there can be certain people only assigned to the new feature development. They don't want to worry about what is the backlog of the support or any new incidents created or not. Why? Because they don't have any concern about that. They just develop their own stuff, right? The new features. Okay, now you are worrying one code base is there. So certain people doing support, certain people doing what? New feature development, how we can manage that. Okay, there's a solution. So we will come into that later, but we will first focus on how we manage it as work items. Then we will go into the code base and see how it is managed there, right? Okay. Now, basically you have three areas right now. Actually, two areas belonging to the root area, right? Okay. So I will not move into the other tabs, right? We will now go back into this one, and if we go into home, actually to manage these iterations, there is option from here. Okay. Right? Configure schedules and iterations. So you can do it from here as well, the iteration management, right? Okay. Now when you go into this work tab, right, you have those sprints. Now this particular sprint is set to current because there's no date set yet, right? So what we can, okay, now we have a backlog of few work items, and in backlog we have different levels like features and backlog items as of now in Scrum template, right? Now, if you want to increase the categories, okay, maybe to epic feature and backlog item, it is also possible, right? Innovations or whatever, you can introduce items, right? It's a customization which we will be looking at as the last session, right? How to do customize these things, right? So it can be done, but right at the moment the feature is high level, this thing, right? Okay, to understand I just say converter utility or something. This is very stupid application thinking, but I could not come up with something better, right? So one is another one is calculator, right? So we can think of calculator implementation as basic calculator and advanced calculator, and converter maybe we can say weight converter, temperature converter, and all those things, right? So basically how we should create these stuff is like when we add new features, we can add it here, right? You can type something here. Tell me one more, can you? Okay, we'll forget about that. You will spend a lot of time thinking on it, right? Okay, this, okay, we'll say this converter utility. Now the implementation should be the backlog items, right? So the relationship is really important, because then only you will be able to get the reports, right, in a organized manner. Otherwise the reports will say something else, right? So always the feature implementation should be the backlog item, right? And then implementation of this particular backlog item would be what? Can you guess? Okay, so weight converter backlog item. Now how are you going to implement that? That particular feature is implemented using 3 backlog items, that is called weight converter, temperature converter, and length converter. So once we implement that particular backlog items, it becomes a feature called converter utility, right? So to implement this particular weight converter, what should we do? We have to have tasks, right? It can be development task, it can be R&D task, it can be what? It can be testing tasks, right? Writing test case tasks. All those things would be the implementation of this particular backlog item. So this is how you should think about handling these things, right? So best way to add tasks to this one is going to this particular user story and add it as implementation again, right? Now there's no implementation, it's called tasks, right? So it differs on each template, right? If you go to agile, it would be implementation again, right? So it differs from the template, but again there is a way to add tasks and all those things. Now particular backlog item is described by storyboards and test cases, right? So purpose of test case is describing a functionality of what? A product backlog item or a requirement or a user story, right? So test cases are used to describe our requirement. That means like it's the practical reality, right? So but the thing is like people, when they are creating test cases, they just go to the test manager and create test cases. They don't worry about the requirement. So then later they expect to get statistics belonging to that requirement, how much test cases passed and failed. Can you get that?
Is it mandatory to define the test cases here?
No, you don't have to define it from here, but you have so much of options, right? Because of so much of options, people do so much of wrong things, right? So the best way, okay, if you can define here, that is again better. Using web access also you can do that, or if you don't want to do it here, you can do it using the test manager tool, but make sure you connect to a requirement and from that requirement create the test cases, right? The problem with most people are like they just create test case reading the requirement and all those things, but they don't link it, right? It's okay to separately create a test case. Now how we are going to link it with the user story, the product backlog item? There is a relationship, I'll show you, right? Okay, now if I go here, right, and say new one, it says link is tested by, right? These things are really important, right? Now people don't use these things properly, then complain you can't get the reports, right? It's not something wrong with TFS, it is something wrong with you, how you are utilizing it, right? So always from the point of the user story or the backlog item or the requirement, the test case relationship should be tested by, right? From the test case point of view, it should be what? Tests, something called the relationship called tests, right? The test case tests user story, test case tests the backlog item. So that should be the relationship. Then only you get the correct picture, right? Again, we can create something called bug, right? When we find a bug, there can be a bug. Now, what is the relationship between this bug and the test case, right? Then user story and bug, what is the relationship? Actually, the user story or product backlog item and bug relationship should be related. There is a relationship called related.
So Vajan, it's only a description for the test cases is added here.
Yeah. When but when you add a, okay, I'll try to just say TC or something and try to say okay. So it will open up the test case and you can add rest of it. Right? If you are adding it here.
Okay, can we link like unit test and all that?
Yes, yes, that is called associated automation. Right? So we will come into that in few sessions later, right? Because if we go down this path, we will miss the focus, right? Okay.
Is there a hierarchy or something like that? So yours, test cases,
yeah, I will come into the relationships in few minutes. Right? We will come step by step, right? So basically, just understand now. Right now, what I want you to understand is now there is a requirement, there is a backlog item, there's a user story in the same level, right? Even bug is at the same level, right? Bugs are related to what? User stories, right? Bugs are related to user stories. Now, this is the level that you are in. Then the level of explanation of the bug or the user story would be test cases, because in practical example you will be having a user story, so you will be implementing that, you will be releasing that to the QA, so QA would be testing, right? And if they find a bug immediately, they will again activate the user story and maybe create a bug and give it to you. Maybe they will not find anything and they will be releasing it to the client even, right? Then client might find a bug. Now again, that bug should be treated as a user story level this thing, right? But there is a relationship, but we can't activate a closed user story again because it's closed. It has gone through the entire steps of the workflow. So what should we do is we should talk about the bug only, but when we take that bug into the consideration, we should have always a link to that particular user story to identify this is something related to this. That is why the relationship of bug and user story is always related. Now it can be like this. Now if you are having CMMI kind of template, there is something called the change requests, because in that practice we call it a change request. Now some bugs we call, those are not bugs, but you are referring to a different requirement, so it should be a change request. So bug can be raised by the client, so we will be saying this is obsolete or this is this is not a bug or something like that, and we may be closing that, but we will be creating a related change requirement. Then change request could be again related to what? Another requirement, right? So that's the way you should treat this level, right? So remember that bug, the user story, requirement and change request and all those things in TFS treated in a same level, right? So the next level is test cases, which are explaining all of those things. So a test case may be testing a bug, test case may be testing a user story, test case may be testing a requirement, right? So test case is at that level. So it is for the purpose of testing a particular this thing that we are doing, right? So that is the understanding. Without this understanding, if you try to use these work items, you will go into somewhere in a big trouble, because then you will create so much of things and it will be very difficult to handle, right? Okay. Now you have the idea now, right?
Backlog items, work items,
okay. Work item, it's a general term used for everything in TFS, basically everything in TFS, right? Work item is a general term, right? Now type of work item is backlog item, right? Now feature is the highest level of backlog items, right? Because we are implementing features to our clients, right? There can be innovation level, that is like people are having really wonderful ideas, but those are like innovative ideas, but still no concept how to implement this as a feature. So if you want that level, we can have that kind of level as well. So forget about that at the moment. We'll just concentrate on feature level. The feature will be implemented using three things depending on the template or depending on the way you work. That is called requirements in CMMI practice. Agile, you call it user story. If you are doing Scrum, you call it product backlog item. It's just terminology, but you talk about the same thing, right? Feature is implemented using a requirement. So requirement is having three names: requirement, PBI, and user story, right? Bugs, everywhere you call it bug, right? So bug is treated in the same level because it is important as a requirement, because even, I mean, you can call it, it's more than important than a requirement, right? Requirement with a bug is bad, really bad, right? So bug.
Can't we have user story and backlog item both in a single template if you're doing Scrum?
Because bug should be treated as a bug.
No, I mean user story and backlog item.
User story and backlog item are not used in the same template because those are two terminologies used for the same thing in two different implementations of Agile, right? Pure Agile, you call it a user story. When you come into Scrum, you call it a PBI, product backlog item. So that is just a terminology, but we are talking about the same thing.
What's the most widely used practice? Scrum or Agile?
It again depends, right? Now I'll tell you the basic difference between, okay, shall we close this test case and move on to the next level, and then I will tell you the difference, right? Okay. Test case I have not saved. I just want to have this user story for product backlog item only. Now when we have features defined like this, okay, features can be defined like this. So we will have set of features, then again we can prioritize these things, right? Now whoever who is doing the business analysis job in the company should be prioritizing. Maybe the calculator is the highest priority thing here, so you can just drag and drop. Now when you're in this one, actually you have move to top, move to position, so all those things added, because there are a lot of complaints saying we can't move to a particular position, we want to change that stack rank number. Oh, we call it here priority, not priority, it's okay, it's hidden now, right? There's something called stack rank. Oh, product, now in this one it's called stack rank in one implementation, I'm not exactly sure, but there is a about 16-digit number automatically generated, which was available for us to edit in earlier TFSs. I mean 2012 update 4 also, you had that possibility to edit it. So people use that number to edit, I mean order the backlog, right? And the problem was when they accidentally drag something from, I mean bottom to top, everything gets again randomly numbered. Randomly numbered means in the particular order it will randomly give a number. So people had a lot of complaints, so Microsoft has changed it to not, I mean they have commented saying this is not a field that should be edited by anybody. So people ask why then it is available in the interface. So they have taken it out of the interface. Now it is available as hidden field. It works behind the scene when you just move like this. So it is not the order actually doing this, right? Because you can see this 1-2 order in anywhere, right? But behind the scene there is another number working, right? Okay. Then you have something like this, right? You can have view of feature to backlog items, right? So you can straight away see what you are having. To implement calculator, you need basic calculator and advanced calculator. To implement convertibility, you need to implement those three, right? And you can even extend this to task level. There's two options, right? You can click these color bars, or but we don't have any tasks, so we can't see any tasks right now, right? And you have option to change it from here, right? So these are nice things to, like, if you are presenting to your management or somebody, just to show, okay, this is really cool, so you can just leave everything, right? Okay, so you can see something appearing in gray color here, right? So this is what now people ask questions when okay, now people, when we are presenting this thing even to your management as, okay, you should use this, they ask what is this graph, right? What is the purpose of this, right? So it's called cumulative flow diagram, right? So anybody has any understanding what is cumulative flow?
It's like burned down side. Burned down side.
It's not burned out. What do you say? Now, by looking at the, terms in the graph, can you explain what is this? It is actually
total snapshot.
Yeah, exactly. Total snapshot of the entire project, right? It says how much work items with the timeline, right? And it says the new items with gray color, and in progress items with blue color, and done or completed items with green color. So ideally, if a project is healthy, what should be the appearance of this particular graph? Anybody can guess? And this is a very unhealthy graph, right? So, okay, since we are having only 2 work items, this is completely okay. But no. We'll say we are
Should be a flat graph.
no.
Well,
It will never be a flat graph because we will be always adding work items, right? So it can't be
when
a
the project is complete.
once it is complete, it should be all green flat one. That is okay. But what I'm asking is, we are down the line. Okay, we say we are 3 months down the project, so we have 6 more months to go. So what should be the look of the graph if it is healthy? So these are the questions that is coming from the management people, right? They will be asking, okay, when should we read this as a good one? So when should it be? Any guesses? Okay, it should be ideally like this, right? It should be having 3 parallel lines, but most of it should be green, and there should be very thin in progress line, and there should be very thin new gray line, right? Those should be, again, should look like parallel lines. It should not be looking like this, right? Why? Then if this new line is expanding, means more new work items or more new backlog items getting added, but we are not catering them, right? If there is lot of in progress work, our teams are not doing it in a proper manner. ඒක හරියට දුටුගැමුණු රජු බත් කනවා වගේ වැඩ කරන ටීම් එක. Don't you know that? When he went to the war, right? He tried to attack from different ends, but he couldn't win from anywhere because his teams were running around the place and trying to, break the walls from different ends, but it couldn't. So one day when he went to අහලා තියෙන එක කතාව. වයස ගාච්චි කෙනෙක් ගාවට ගියාම උණුබත් එකක් දුන්නලු. So අර ඒ වෙලාවේ උණුබත් එක කන්නන ඒකත් කන්නේ අර විදිහට. අර තනින් තන කනවලු. කනකොට කට පිච්චි පිච්චි මුළු එකම කන්න try කරන කන්න බෑ. ඊට පස්සේ කිව්වලු ඕම නෙමෙයි පුතේ කන්නේ මේක කන්න ඕනේ කෙලවරක ඉඳන් එතකොට අනිත් ටික නිවෙනවා කිව්වලු. So රජුරු දන්න කියලා දන්නේ නැතුව තමයි කියලා දෙන්නේ දුටුගම පුතේ උඹ බත් කන්නේ දුටුගම රජුරු යුද්ධ කරනවා වගේ කිව්වලු. Right, then
Then only he changed the entire war strategy.
Yeah, then only he changed the entire war strategy and he attacked one place using full force. So they were like, the other party, sorry, then, so the same thing, right? So your software development team should attack the set of few user stories together. So there should be very little in progress work. So that is the lesson that we have to learn from the history, right? Okay. So, this diagram explains that, right? So when we are in the feature level, it shows the feature level diagram, right? But when we are in the backlog level, it shows the backlog items level. So you can see there are 5 work items, right? Okay, so I'm not 100% sure when we are in this view, what should it show? We'll see. It again shows only the feature level, right? So that is better. And I think you can edit the maximum date range, right? Because when you are starting a project, this will always look ugly,
Yeah.
right? Because you will be adding a lot of work items because you are planning stage. So you should, you can use setting the maximum period to start showing this graph. So that feature is added later. I think this is not available in on-premises right now. I'm not sure, right? Okay.
This
So
part of the project should be done by PM, right?
okay, this is not belong to PM or anybody actually.
Anyone should be.
Anyone should be able to add things, right? Okay, backlog. Okay, backlog. Where do we find the backlog of our project? Everybody finds, right? That means like even a developer, when he implements something, he finds a requirement. We need to implement this particular part to make this project work. So he can create a backlog item, but he should create it where? Where should he create? He should create it at the backlog level. He should not create it at the current sprint. Why? Current sprint is already planned something that is coming with agile practices, right? Not even with CMMI or something. You have a planned set of work, so you can't put more work into that. It will ruin everything. So best thing is add it as a backlog item, prioritize and identify whether we need to take it right now or can we take it later as a team, right? So that should be the ideal way. So this thing will be added by many people, but prioritized and managed by who? Normally. In agile practice, we call them product owners. Product owner is who? If the customer, no, Scrum Master is not the product owner, right? Scrum Master is different role, right? Product owner is actually our customer, but in most of the software development company scenarios, there is a representative for the product owner, that is the business analyst or account manager, or there's different titles for this, like product manager, different titles we call them, but he is a representative to the customer. Like he is the person who is going to the customer and get the requirement and understand the requirement and discuss the features. He is the person who is mainly interacting with the customer, who should be actually managing these priorities and all those things. He can do prioritizing this. He can bring things up, bring things down. He can decide what he is going to deliver the customer, because he is the person who is mostly discussing with customer. He has the understanding what customer needs. So he can prioritize. You can add the items, but you can't add it to the top. You can have to always add it to the bottom and maybe inform him, I think this is a valid requirement. So he may be discussing with client and bringing it to the top, right? So when you are working on real sprint, you should take these backlog items into the sprint. As a team, you should decide, okay, within these 2 weeks or within this month or within these 6 months, we are going to do this stuff, right? Okay, for example, we will say now the priority given to us is we have to do the weight converter first, then temperature converter next, like that. Maybe our person says, okay, you need to do the temperature converter first, right? So we don't have an option of choosing items from below, right? We can drag and drop those things, but as a practice, the teams are not allowed to do such things. When the team is preparing for a sprint, they should be getting items from here to here, right?
In project,
Yeah.
remember we used to have these dependencies. Like until this is completed, you can't start the other next action item.
Yeah.
Where do we define that?
Okay. Now that is the difference between implementation of agile practice and old way of developing.
But still, we will have that kind of requirements.
Yeah, if that is there, there is no way to link them, right?
So is it not recommended?
It is not actually recommended now. Whenever you define a product backlog item or a user story or a requirement, the advice is to define them as invest. It is called independent. There are a lot of but you can
Yeah,
say
but,
TMS.
whichever way we look at it, Majan,
Yeah.
in a project, there will be items which has dependencies on completion of other items. So until this item gets completed, you can't even start this.
Yeah, then you should have them in the lower of your back again
Priority.
priority. Depending on the priority only you should manage that, but always you should have a component which you can independently develop and test and
Is there
deliver.
any way to, like, okay, we define everything on the list,
Mhm.
and can we temporarily disable any item?
Abandon or
Example,
pause.
I'm asking you based on a real scenario. at least, okay? So let's say, so you are the big boss and you are assigning tasks.
Okay.
And let's say something is assigned to Madhu,
Okay.
but he can't start until I finish the, let's say, web API layer.
Yeah.
But according to this practice, we can't define it as a dependency.
Yes.
So can I basically disable the task assigned to him until I complete mine, like a role definition?
Okay. It's working like this in TFS, right? In TFS terminology, that kind of task is called a block task, right? So what you should do is you should change it to a blocked, right? And you should maybe raise an issue or impediment saying this impediment should be cleared. That means his task cannot be completed until something is completed. Maybe it can be something like not development task. You have to get him a barcode reader machine. So it is not
Yeah.
arrived yet. So that is an impediment.
Okay.
Right? So that impediment work item may be assigned to you even, right? You have to bring it and give it to him.
Yeah.
So until you close that item, he has an excuse to say, I can't start this,
Yeah.
right? But that is visible, but it will not prevent like in project. Like project you had dependency
Yeah.
and preventing, that preventing mechanism is not there, but you have something blocked. You can see that is blocked due to an issue, right?
You know, in real world, Prashant, the resource allocation is what a business person looks at.
Mm.
And so when people are working on multiple projects,
Mm.
this dependency conversation is very important to them.
Okay.
So at any given time, so people want to take one dashboard, one snapshot saying, okay, project is ongoing, but who will be idling the dependency items for the next 2 weeks, so I can drag them and put them on another project. This is what people look at.
Okay. So there is few ways to address that, right?
Okay.
Okay. Ideal way
Uh,
is have a project server, right, and have a resource pool, right, and integrate it with TFS. So it gives you full visibility whether this person is blocked with hours or not, right? And now since we have a
මෙතන අපිට
backlog,
user chart එකක් හදන්න බැරිද? Who's occupied at පුළුවන්. You are coming to that.
yeah, right.
Okay. Then let's have the conversation after that.
Yeah, maybe we will look at all the features and then come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
ඊට දැස්සම මාර ප්‍රශ්න.
yeah, I know.
ඒකට උත්තර නෑ සමහරවිට.
I have heard a lot of those things.
Anyway, then right now I'm in the middle of a large scale deployment.
Okay.
We have hired Microsoft consultancy services and deployed across the organization. And practically කරන්න ගියම මචං ඕවා තමයි තියෙන issue.
Yeah, they will be asking.
So when they can't call MCS for all those, and those
Yeah.
buggers bill $180 per hour.
Yeah. Ask them to give me a call, then I'll answer.
Then they call me. සමහර වෙලාවට ඔච්චර level එකකට මම දන්නේ නැහැ. Then I pay the
Nice.
MCS guy, they will bill me and find a solution.
No, this is actually a separate subject. That is why. No, this is software development entire practice. So you need to, I don't know, always keep on updating because Microsoft is changing every 3 weeks features. So we need to cope up with that as well. Okay. So okay, now we have the set of work items that we need to implement, right? So we need to okay, we'll say we are going to implement the temperature converter. Now you can see, right, it is already assigned to that particular sprint, release 1, sprint 1, right? And we are going to implement the weight converter, and we are going to implement the length converter. Only that within this sprint, right? We'll say we are going to have a very small sprint, so we can do only those parts. right? Again, we need to have a mechanism to measure our speed, right? How that is supported in TFS. Okay, one way is measuring by hours, right? The other way is measuring by uh, you say it comparing to something, that is called the relational or whatever way, right? Just you, okay, if I tell you an example, can you exactly say the size of this one quickly?
70.
It's not possible, right? You can't guess that. But if I say, if this is 1, right, how much of this will be this, right? So you can say that about 1 2 3 4 5 6, right, about 6, right? So if we treat this as 1, this will be 6 side. So like way you should relatively measure your work, right? That is more accurate than trying to measure by hours, because our, when we put our estimates, right, it's always wrong. Why? If we say 10 hours, it's not going to end 10 hours, right? It's not, not going to happen like that, right? No, it never happens in any organization. It never happens, right? Sometimes we say 10 hours and we can only, I mean, we can do it in half an hour, right? We find it, right? So that's like that. So it's better to estimate as relative, because then we will understand. Now when you are doing that relative estimations, there is a way to put that, right? In Scrum template, the place to put that is effort. Now most people use this effort as hours. So that is totally wrong. So whenever you are advising somebody who is using Scrum template, ask them, do not put hours here, right? Do not put hours or minutes or whatever here. This should be a relative measurement. You can have your own scale, maybe t-shirt sizes, maybe XXL large, like that. Whatever, you have a number, 1 to 100 number, 1 to 10 number, whatever the scale, just put a relative number. Don't put, okay, we'll say by complexity, the simplest one we have chosen, okay, is we'll say length converter is the simplest one here, right? So we will make it as 1, right? Compared to this, right, compared to this, now you can see effort, right, straight away, right? Compared to this, what is the weight converter? Maybe it's 1.5, depending on our scale, maybe 2, right? Okay,
It's
we'll,
the same thing that do with the card.
yeah, exactly, whatever the planning pocket thing. So you enter those numbers here, right? Okay, we'll say this is 2. I'm just putting numbers, right? So don't worry, right? You don't have to put it like 1 2 3 only, right? So we'll say this is 5, because this is complex, we'll say, right? This is not the actual, but I wanted just to show you. So that means if we manage to complete everything, what is the team speed at the end of our sprint? Would be 7, right? That 7 is not any, I mean, 7 hours or 7 days. It's just 7. Speed of 7. Right? So it's 8 units. 8 units, right? So if we manage to only do the temperature converter and weight converter, our speed is 7, right? So depending on the priority, we will say the priority is like this. We will set it like that, and we can go into the sprint. Now in a normal sprint planning, you would be adding tasks, right? And you can actually add tasks from here. Okay, so we will be having tasks like, okay, we will create only 1 or 2 tasks and learn how this works, right? That's the only purpose. Okay, so we'll say develop code or something, just check, right? Okay, now you don't have to assign to anybody. Ideal Scrum Agile practice, you don't assign to anybody, but certain people prefer to assign everything, so it depends. Then you can assign if you like. If you don't want to assign, you don't have to assign, but we'll see, right? But what I will do is I'll assign to myself, right?
How does it get picked up by a developer if it is not assigned?
The developer should voluntarily, that is why you have a daily scrum. In the daily scrum 15 minutes, he'll say this is the backlog board that we have. I'll go to the board and explain that, right? Okay, now this is what you have here, right? Okay, we'll without assigning, we'll go there. Okay. okay, it's a to do task, right? And we will okay, then remaining work. Now this is the place where we try to put some hour estimates, right? This remaining work should be entered by using hours, right? That user story implementation is something relative measurement. This is a more small task, like okay, maybe the ideal task name should not be develop code, it should be developing a certain method. Certain method, we will call it develop method X or something X, okay. And developing this method X would take about, we will think, okay, 4 hours to including unit tests or whatever, right? So we will just save it, right? So you can see, then we maybe want to develop a method Y as well, right? Method Y, right? So okay, again we need to put some hours. We'll say it will take 2 hours. Now in Scrum template you only have this remaining work. Now when you go into Agile template or CMMI template, you have 2 more values. What are those? One is called original estimate, the other one is remaining work, the other one is completed work. Now when you have that, what should you enter when you are creating a new task? And these are the things that the people do wrong mostly, and then the information is not visible. Always you should put original estimate and remaining work until you activate a task. Or activate means until you take a task into in progress mode or the working mode, you can edit the original estimate, right? But once you take a task into into working mode or active mode, you can't change the original estimate, but you can go and change, but you are not, as a practice you should not change it. You should do only change remaining work. Now today you say you work on for 4 hours and you still find you may need another 2 hours. So what should you do? After 4 hours, you say 4 completed hours are there and you are putting remaining as 2. Now in Scrum template, we are only worrying about the remaining hours. So we initially said 2 hours are remaining for this particular task, but later at the end of the 2 hours, we will find we need another 1 hour or half an hour. So we say remaining is 0.5. Right?
The number of hours can be cut down.
In Scrum, no. Scrum is a practice where you don't worry about completed or original estimates. You only worry about remaining. So that is a software development practice. In Agile, you worry about those things. So that is why you have. Yeah, it's just a number. Hours. Yes. It's hours. Unit is hours. Right?
It's defined.
Yeah, it's defined. Right? Okay. So guys, you got the picture, any?
Yeah. And something I have like this.
Okay. Now you can see it is automatically calculated to that particular thing, right? See? Yeah. No. Relative measurement is something else. Relative measurement is that 6 is not the relative measurement. That 6 is accumulated value of the hours. No. The relative measurement we have not measured depending on the time. It is considering so much of things: the testing effort, the complexity of implementation, the risk. There can be risks, right? In software components, there can be risks because certain technology may not support certain things. So those are called risks. So depending on the risk also, we give relative size values, right? So maybe that does not belong to any of the tasks even, right? So that those two don't mix up, right? This is just to track down how much hours we do work, right? So this is a separate this thing again, like iteration and area. These are two ways to measure things, right? Now this is to measure the current work in progress. That relative sizing is used to understand the entire team's speed of achieving things. That is used as a measurement in later stage of the project, right? After 2-3 sprints, you find out the real speed of the team, that is called the velocity of the team, and then you plan work accordingly. So we will have to enter certain values and then see, right? Okay. Now again, there may be again, okay, I'll say prepare test cases or something, right? Okay. Then again, if you want to assign to two people test case preparation, then you have to create two tasks, right? Okay. We'll say 4 hours are required for this. Okay. Now you can see, even if you go into features and if you try to, if you want, you can add remaining work here. Okay. It should normally bring it up to this level. Okay. Okay, this is the way you can add columns, right? It doesn't show anything. Right? Okay, I'm not sure why it is not showing, but ideally it should show, right? Okay. Anyway, when we are in sprint, we can see the accumulated values, right? Okay, 10, right? So we have 10. Now we need to set dates for our sprint. So we can do it from two places, right? From here or from there in the home page, or from even in the administrative mode, right? So normally set date permissions and all those things will not be provided for every user, right? Normally developers will not get that permission. Certain people will have different level of permissions. We can discuss that later, right? Okay, we will set some dates here. Just since we are planning, we will say we are starting the sprint from tomorrow and ending the next week, right? So we have 1 week sprint, right? Okay. Now we don't see anything here. Why? Because we have set it as starting today. So if you want to see something, what can we do? We have to set it as maybe a little bit of a quick. You can see that, right? So it's dynamically drawn, right? So when you reduce, this is the bad way to have things, but when you are starting a sprint, this will actually look like this. It's okay. Then it should gradually start to come down, right? So if you are ideally planning things, you should plan it well before the sprint start, right? Okay. So that is one measurement. Now this burn down you can see, right? So when we are progressing, you will be seeing this. Now with this burn down, the Saturdays, Sundays or holidays are also removed from here, right? Again, if you want to have different holidays, like your holidays are in your company, it is Monday and Sunday now, then you can set it, right? In the administration, we can, when I go into the administration, I'll show you how to set that, right? Okay. For the time being, you can remember, you can set it, right? Okay. Then there's something called capacity. So this is the place where we set each person's allocation or something like that. Now you can see only one person here. Why? Because one person is assigned to this particular project. So if you want to see more, okay, I will add 1 or 2 more, right? To maybe directly to this one. Again, all are my user accounts, I think. Okay, this is something like that. Okay. We can add like this, right? And then you will go and refresh this here. Okay, you can see 3 people, right? So we are still on the root team, right? So I'm setting in the root team just to explain this properly. Then I will explain the multi-team this thing later, right? Otherwise you will get confused, right? So when you are in a single team, we'll say this person is fully allocated to this, right? That means these 8 hours can be added as the capacity per day. Now this is per day how many hours you can actually put in for the work that is defined in the backlog, right? So if you are defining backlog for even items such as like facilitating things, like finding the device and bringing it in, right? You can consider those hours as well. But normally, advice is in TFS always try to focus on more on development. This thing. If you have that kind of requirement, like find the device, find the scanner device and bring it here, that should be an impediment or issue, right? Normally, people you use this issue work item again in a bad way to raise bugs, right? So then they expect it to be resolved. So it cannot be resolved. Why? It is used in a different context. So remember, issue is for actually handling things that is affecting the development team, not to the client. The client can't raise issues, right? Issues to I mean, this is a planning tool for the development team, not to the client, right? So this tool supports actually the development team requirements, not the clients. Okay, clients are given certain information, but it's not for the client planning. It is for the planning of the development team, right? Okay. So you can put 8 hours. Now again, when you are coming into agile practices, you are advised to put it as 80%, right? Why is that? You have agile meetings and all those things, daily scrums and all those stuff. So normally advised to put it as 6 or 6.5 to 7, right? So we will put 7 or something, right? And maybe this person is 50% allocated for this project, so he can work only on 3, right? And this guy is, we'll call him the management person who is handling multiple projects, so he will be giving his time as 1 hour per day. But that doesn't mean he has to each day work only 1 hour. He may be putting entire 8 hours per day for one day, and next day he will not be doing anything. That can be that. But within this period, how many hours that he is going to put in, that is what we are going to record. And for each person, how many off days. That means you can plan his leave. Like that, this you can go and say additional dates or date ranges and all those things. So that is facilitated.
This is between the
Specific period. What are the? No. If you ask from people in your team, are you going to go leave on December? He will say, I don't know, right? But if you ask, are you going to take any leave before 29th? He would be able to give some kind of accurate figure, depending on there is no something something really unexpected happens, right? So that is unexpected, can happen any day, right? You can fall sick, you can even die. That can happen, right?
So you want that.
Right? So then fully you are fully off. Right? Okay. But anyway, you can define holidays. So I will define for this person 1 holiday, right? So then you can see, right, 26th. So you can immediately see there is a graph, right? Right? So the entire team right now has what? How many hours? Right? 77 hours, right? But now you can see this person has 49 hours, right? So if I say this is a holiday, he is reduced to 42 hours and this is reduced to 70 hours. His 7 hours is taken off, right? This is his capacity, right? Capacity means number of working days into the planned capacity hours, right? Now even you can copy this from sprint to sprint. So when you are planning the next sprint, you can copy from previous sprint the number of hours and edit it, right? So this is how you plan capacity for a particular sprint, and you can even name team of days. Now team of days can be power days and all those general holidays, right? Or special holidays, whatever. Right?
What if someone work in some like Saturday or something?
Okay, that is again unplanned this thing, right? So you are putting extra
I'm
effort.
planning to work on Saturday because I need leave on next Monday.
So that means like you are not recording that particular leave. Simple as that. So you are actually going to work the entire number of days. You got it, right? Clear? Okay. right? So it's a null effect actually. So you don't have to record a holiday because you are going to work on Saturday because you are taking leave on Monday. But if you are going to work on Saturday as an extra day, it's again, you don't have to define it as capacity. That is, you are putting extra effort. It's not your capacity, right? Your capacity is working days only.
So your capacity is low basically. You are trying to catch up with the
Right? The capacity is capacity.
According to this equality.
No, see, if you are, let's say your capacity is planned at 7 hours and you are given one work unit to finish, and if you think, oh shit, I need an additional 7 hours to do it,
Your
that means
capacity
the
is
company is having a wrong estimate about the actual capacity.
actual capacity. Yes, exactly.
Alright.
වැඩේ කරන්න බැරි වගේ.
No, I mean, if the deadline come for
Yes. Then actually those things happen. But that is again because your estimations are wrong.
Yeah.
Because you have underestimated the task or you have underestimated the developers. It can be both ways. Maybe you have underestimated the task, right? Because you think it's 6 hours, but it might take 12 hours to complete. Okay. So all those things will be visible once you progress like this, right? Okay. Right. Now you understand the capacity clearly, right? Got it.
Just quickly, just this keep track of a change log. Now, let's say at the beginning, I say Sanjay Airpass capacity is 1. After a month, if I make it 2, will all the reports reflect his capacity was 1 for the first month and now it's 2?
Okay. Now this iteration, once that date is passed, whatever the edits that you do is not affected to the TFS anymore for that old details. Like for example, like okay, we define the capacity here like this, and in the sprint 2, okay, stay on this page, save, and when I am in the sprint 2,
Reason for that question, because right now I'm working with a partner
yeah.
who's having a workforce of 80 freelance developers.
Wow.
Right. So that's their model. They have 10 full-time, 80 freelance developers whom they have interviewed. Most of them are finalized and they are going full on TFS.
Can you interview me and pick me there?
But I was also actually late to the whole process. They had done everything in their own and a cloud conversation, they just got us involved. Then when I looked at this, so they have like a more dynamic requirement. Companies that you and I work in, on a 10-hour schedule every day.
Yeah.
These others, it's like on demand basis.
Oh.
Whenever they have a project, they just give an open call out to the team and ask for a time plan for the next 1 month. Then other දෙකක් කරන්නම් කියප එක සතියට ඊට පස්සේ 10ක් කරන්නම් කියලා. They need to practice. So at the end of the day, their payments will be tied up to whatever reports this gives. Okay. That's why they ask for the same resource on the same project. If the person says, okay, I can do only 5 hours this week and 10 hours next week, and it can be tracked.
Yeah, you can track. You should track it as then 2 sprints.
Okay.
Right now, what you can see now, I'm in the second sprint, so I can copy the capacity from the previous sprint, right? Copy, so it will copy the previous values. Then I can maybe in the next week I can only work for 4 hours for this one, right? Then if I save this, right, if I move back on to this one, it would be still at 7. See that 7. Now after this 2090 is passed, even if you go and change here, there will be null effect in the graph. Right? Graphs will be always showing you the thing, and you can't even edit this. As I remember, if the date is passed, you can't edit things. It's automatically grayed out and you can't edit it, I think. Right? But before saying that, make sure I'll verify and let you know, right? Whether it's grayed out or not. I'm not 100%.
Very interesting ask. They ask whether their billing system can be linked to this.
Yes.
What?
You can do that. Ask them to install project server and integrate these two. Project system has a built-in costing and billing mechanism.
So first they have found a solution from an Indian company and already built Karabega. They are evaluating that right now. It's quite expensive.
Yeah, but if you can push the project server, that would be better for you. Because project server, yeah. Again, but the project server is having everything like that cost analysis and all those things that you can deal on different ratios, okay, this resource is a gold resource or something like that. You can even give them different rates and all those things. Just, I don't know, sort of facilities. Okay, so you got the idea of capacity, right? So then one more thing, the capacity can have activities. What are those activities? Again, you can group on these things: deployment, design, development. Right now, in our Sri Lankan companies, mostly we worry about the development part only. We just think QA can do anything. Like they just, their times are not tracked. Their test case development times are not tracked. Their testing times are not tracked. Only developers are like බෙල්ල මිරිකන් අල්ලන් ඉන්නේ developers ටික විතරයි. You have to develop. Testers can do any damn thing and they can just get out of it, right? So we should actually track their work also here, because that is also part of the team, right? So you can define these under different disciplines. So if we say this person is developing, this person is developing, and this person is doing the testing, so you can see, right? So depending on the discipline, again you get ratios. How much capacity you have for the development? 63. How much capacity you have for the testing? 7. That means you need another tester for this project, right? Right? So you can immediately see that and decide that, right? Okay. So we have defined the capacity. So once we start adding on more tasks for this sprint, it will get green. Or if we, what will happen if this goes beyond this? It will immediately indicate red, right? So that's working nicely, right? Okay, so are you clear now with this thing? Capacity, backlog, how to do the task planning and all those things. Okay. Now once we do that, the next step is do the development, right? Okay, so we should start doing development, right? So I will be developing something very stupid. Don't okay. I'm connected to this particular project, right? Okay, if I go into source control explorer, is there anything? Nothing, right? Okay, again, how we organize in source control explorer and our hard disk, that is again something that most of the developers do very badly, right? They copy their software all over the place, right? In so many hard disks, same software copied to so many folders, and right? And okay, the thing is, like, they develop so much of features in different versions, and then later find out I have implemented that in the D drive, this thing, and something is developed in F drive, that thing, and when you try to merge them, you can't merge them, right? It's completely two different things. And this is typical developers, I am saying, right? Okay. And the most dangerous thing what happens is, like, you have everything connected to TFS. TFS is some kind of, like, in Visual Source Safe, you had the option of like deleting and still having your local copy preserved, right? But with TFS, you delete a file means what? You delete a file and check in means, right? It is deleted from your local folder. So the next person, when he gets latest, what happens? It is erased from his local folder, right? Okay. So if you don't have administrative permissions at the TFS level, you can't recover the file. You have to go and ask administrator of TFS to recover the file. Right? They can recover, but again, you will have to give hundreds of excuses to get a deleted file, right? So now when you have multiple copies, all bound to TFS, what happens is you develop so much of things, and you open the old copy which is not having those features, and you try to check in once, those files will be treated as deleted. Why? It is not there in this particular version, so it's deleted. So it's checked in and deleted. Checked in means it's deleted, right? So that can happen. So don't keep multiple copies, right? There is a way to keep backup, so whatever the halfway done
So
work.
won't it be showing as a conflict in the project file? Won't it be showing as a...
Normally you do not read the messages that comes out of Visual Studio. You just click yes, yes, yes. Like developers, just click yes. How many of them they read the entire message and understand that? I mostly find people who just click yes and the disaster happen and then come to me and ask, can you recover that file? I don't see. It's a okay. Maybe you are reading, but most people do not do that in Teams. They just, when Visual Studio asks yes and no, they always speak yes. That is the normal. Okay, that is one thing. Then, when we are initially starting something, we'll say we don't have a local folders mapped or anything to this particular machine. So what should we do initially? How we are going to map? Should we map from the particular project? Go and map. Now whenever you click on mine, you can see everything is automatically mapped, right? Even if something that I don't download, I will not download. Let's see. This is not downloaded, right? Still it is mapped. Now how come? Right? Make sure you always map this at this level, right? And when you are mapping at this level, again you are mapping not to the TFS root, right? Where are you mapping this? Now TFS has hierarchy, that is called TFS root, and you have what? Project collections, right? So when you are mapping here, you are mapping to actually project collection level. Now with Visual Studio Online, how many collections that do you get?
1, 5, 1.
Only one, right? Only one collection. On premises versions, you can have multiple collections, right? Depending on your organization, whether they set up multiple collections, they can have. Now, for example, in my company, they have clients, then sandbox, different kind of collections, right? So then you have to have a root folder called whatever TFS. We will say XYZ organization TFS inside that collection level folder and map the collection root to that collection folder. So you have entire TFS mapped to one drive and one particular place. So whenever you go to get a particular project, when you are authorized to get that, you just go and say get latest version. You download into the relevant path, and that will not. It can be like in your machine, it can be F drive, the other person's machine, it can be D drive. It doesn't matter, but you should always have a hierarchy. So that helps you in lot of ways. Right? Relative references works without any issues, right? So when you are adding project references, you know some people go and edit and hard code C colon like that to the assemblies or the project files. So if you do that, the problem comes where? The problem comes when you try to automate the builds and all those stuff, because build servers will be downloading stuff and looking for the relative paths, and they will find the projects cannot be found or those kind of errors come. So we can experience that and see, right? Okay. The next thing, whenever you are starting a new project, new solution, now this is an empty this thing, right? If I try to eat and talk, what will happen? I don't know.
Take a 5 minutes break. Kita 10 minutes ago kali baru.
Okay. Then මෙතනින් මම නවත්තලා ඊළඟ එකේ රුට් එක කරන්න. I can eat later. And what should be the folder name here? Any ideas? Source is one idea.
Project name. Project name.
Project name is already defined in the team project, right? Down. This is very bad naming. 18 August 2014 Scrum. That I wanted to track the Microsoft releases. That's why I just put it like that, because I wanted to identify the latest Visual Studio Online template. So, what should be the name? Solution name. You can have multiple solutions in a project. Any guess? Okay. Have you heard about a concept called branching? Right? Okay. In that concept, the why we are using branching?
Work on different work. Separate work item. Work.
Why we need
Modules.
branching? If we don't have a question, there shouldn't be an answer, right?
But
There
yeah,
is a
but-
question.
See, no, one person is doing release for this weekend and the other one is working on a work item to another month.
Okay.
So they both can work on each other and by some time the work need to be done for the next release also will be done.
Okay. The ideal explanation for this is like once you start development of a project, you won't need this branching, right? You can work on a single branch, right? You are actually developing the entire team on a single project. But once you do the first UAT release, not to the QA, UAT release, right? UAT means you are releasing to user to test it, right? So UAT release is done, and still you are continuing on the project, new features and all those stuff, right? The UAT might have a small issue which can be fixed immediately, but since you have done a lot of development changes and enhancements to your source code base, you are unable to fix that. So in that UAT, your project will be turned down. Right?
And that can be done using label.
Okay, labeling is one workaround, but that is the difficult workaround, right? So once you do the release to UAT level, you should create a release branch, right? So the ideal explanation is that once you do a release to UAT level, you create a release branch and freeze your main, develop, then create another development branch out of this main. So minimum requirement after releasing, doing the first release is having 3 branches, the ideal solution, right? And it is not difficult to have that, and it won't consume any space on TFS. Why? TFS, how the branching works? Is it copying files? In Visual Source Safe, the behind mechanism was files. So you copy everything and keep a copy. But in TFS, it is a database that is storing data, and it will always create branches in seconds. Why? It is not going to create a copy. It's just having different path references. Whenever you make changes only, it will keep the track of changes. So TFS behind the scene doesn't keep particular files. It keeps original plus the changes and which change belongs to which path. That is the behind the scene mechanism. So there's no space consumed, so you can create any number of branch, but you should create branches properly because you should be able to manage it, right? So the ideal branching should be main, then a development and release after the first release. So you can have more than that, but that would be sufficient for most of the projects. So whenever you do a release, I will explain how this should work using actual example. But now keep that on mind. What do you think you should call this particular folder? Starting folder. Main. Yes, exactly correct answer. Right? Okay. MAIN. Na? So normal advice is create it as main, right? Create it as main because you are thinking of converting this to a branch later, right? And if you are going to store documents and rest of the stuff here, are you going to do that? Where should you store documents related to the project and all those things? Here? Okay. If you don't have any other option, it's okay to use the source control, but try to not to do that as much as possible. There is a separate place to do that. Where? Now TFS, when you are setting up, there is not mandatory but a required component is there. It is called SharePoint Foundation, which is free as well. So once you have that SharePoint Foundation, you can have a team site where you can have a document repository with versioning, right? That is the place you should have documents. And once you have that in SharePoint, what is the advantage? You can link those documents, those PowerPoint slides, those pictures, whatever, with what? Video files, with what? With the work items. But when you have it in source control, can you link that to work items? No. It's not possible. So you should identify where you should keep your things, right? And this TFS source control is for actually what? To source control, not to keep documents. Some people even keep here CD images. Like actually at our office, once the build server started to consume a lot of space, and build server space is like 200 GB in 5 minutes or so, because like they are queuing so many builds, and they have set the root path to the build as the, because it's very easy everything to the workspace, and they had 5 GB folder which is having entire clip art CDs and DVDs. So it's always getting downloaded to build servers. So you can imagine, right? People how badly they use these things. So you should keep those things in a separate place that is called SharePoint, right?
Here's a scenario that I conducted. So for example, I was working on a set of apps. Right? These are like same high-level code base, but there are different versions of it. But will be published as different apps to multiple stores. Right? So what we did is we built one code base that was built and finished and published. But for the second version, so one guy recommended we should branch it, but I wanted to create a new project.
New TFS project.
Yeah.
Okay.
So which one do you think is right?
Branching is okay. Again, even if you create new project, you can branch out to that new project.
What's the advantage?
Advantage is like if you are creating a new project, you can keep a separate backlog and all those things, right? So that is advantage, right? Again,
Advantage of branching?
Branching advantage is like you can separately do the development
Okay.
for that particular thing, and if you later find that there are certain change sets that should go into that original branch, you can isolate those change sets and send it even, right? So if
But
you,
it will be built as the same set of assemblies, right? Main and the branch.
Yeah.
It will be the same assembly, but
Yeah.
in this case, this should be Apex, this is App 1.
okay,
Those as two separate assemblies to the stores.
okay.
Then branching is not the right option.
Okay, you if you are going to utilize the same code base, you can create another team project, but still, since you are going to utilize the same code base, best thing that you should do is out of that main branch, again branch it as main branch to the new project, right? And from there onwards, you are not going to ever merge these things back again.
Yeah, there's no plan to merge them.
Okay, so but rather than manually downloading and copying and checking in, the branching is most trusted way of copying it down to the next project, right? The branching cannot be done via project collections, like the cross project collections is not possible, but within the project collection you can. Okay, now we have main folder, then inside that maybe you can name it sources, whatever the hierarchy that you like, and create it, right? But I will not going to do that. I just create a solution inside this folder, right? Okay, so where can you create new solution from here, right? Okay, we'll without wasting much time. Then again, the people normally when they are creating solutions, they create Windows application, all those things, so that is not advised. Again we should use Visual Studio Solutions and browse to the correct path. Where is that? This one, main, and select the folder, and I'm not worrying about the names, right? So just create a solution, right? So once you create the solution, open it, right? Then you can straight away see the plus because we have used that to source control, right? And you can add projects. We'll just add a console app to something. Okay. So this is the way you should do this, right? Most people do it like go and add a Windows application or something, then find, okay, I can't group this properly, then try to create solutions and mess it up, right? So this is the best way to edit, right? Okay, now I'm not going to do any coding or anything, right? So just we'll fill this, right, and check this in, right.
What's that code lens thing?
This one,
No.
this one.
Yeah.
That is called
No, I don't have all these options there.
you have to install few things, right?
My vision is done.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. It's like this now. Even if you do something like this, right now there's an error, right? You can straight away see the error here. This highlights the error, right?
What are these
So
things?
okay. The tools I have installed are productivity power tools for Visual Studio. Then Team Foundation power tools. Then there's one more. This one.
Team Foundation Power Tools, does it apply to the online version also?
Yeah. Only code lens support is not there. That top this thing. I'll show you.
Power tools there no matter our idea.
Did you see the new feature in 2014? When you debug,
Peak definition.
not peak, it actually shows you the execution time in front of the debug marker. When you go F11, when it jumps from line to line, it actually shows the actual millisecond execution time.
Wow.
How useful it is.
Let's see. Okay. Second. Just looking at the set of tools that I have installed. Okay, advanced. This is okay. Most important things are these two things. If you want color themes to be changed, then a color theme editation. If you want that, you can have, but these two really useful. Huh? You'll actually this is one of the productivity power tool option, but it has a lot of other things like this one, like when you enter. Now, if you have a if statement here, like this, right? So those things are really helpful, and even it shows you the block that you are in, and you can this supports even 10,000 feet of code, right?
Yeah.
So it's it says it supports. I don't know. I have never written.
I have seen some very complex.
Yeah, and it's easy. You can see each and every breakpoint, each and error point here. So you can just click and preview and click. Right? Then there's other options like peak definition and all those things. Very nice options. So okay, we can look at it. And this is called code lens support. But the thing is, like with Visual Studio Online, you get the reference support only. That means it's actually Visual Studio support only. But with TFS on premises, this shows you change sets, test cases, test executed, and each and every information. I will show you with, I mean, maybe in the next day I will show you with on premises version what is the difference. Yes, yes. Like it's like when you say right click and source control and annotate, right? So you can see the information. Like it shows more than that. I mean, if the server has a different version, we'll say server has a newer version. In your top of your method, it will show you this is the version that you are having. This is the latest version. All those information would be shown, right? So that is with on-premises TFS only. So it is still valuable on-premises TFS. So those are the features that are not available in online. Right? Okay, so we don't have
Even the online versus offline feature comparison list.
Yeah. Yes.
I couldn't find a proper like a table saying here's what's there. The features list are divided. You want like a color?
I'll send you. I have link bookmarked at my office. I'll give it to you. Right? Okay, so we are going to check this in, right? Okay. Now again, I'll just check this in, and now you can see something like this, right? Okay. It's retrieving. Okay, no personal favorite queries found. That means you have to have it as a my query or favorite query to get it from here, right? So where can you define that? Okay, and you can see a section called queries, right? Okay, these are called work item queries. That means you are writing queries against work item, and there's a special language for this that is called WIQL. It is the work item query language, right? So whenever you create a query from Visual Studio, you can save it, save as, and create it as save it as a file, and open it in a notepad and even edit it, right? There are options like as of, which is very useful to traverse to the history, like when you were at March 15th, how was the work items looked like, right? But the only disadvantage is that as of queries can be executed only with TFS API. Otherwise, it's not valid. Like if you try to edit it as of entry and try to run it with Visual Studio, it doesn't give you the details properly. You have to execute it with API. 3 lines of code, and you can get it. Okay? And you can create custom audit reports and all those things. Okay, we will be coming into those things later. Okay. Now we will actually, what we will do is, now whenever you are actually working on a certain this thing, right, what should you do? I'll quickly try to finish this, right, in 5 to 10 minutes, right? No. Just check in and finish, then we will create the build and rest of it in the next day.
I will call in 2 minutes.
Okay, then shall we stop here and continue from there? That's also okay. We are at a point where we only developed code.
Okay.
Right? Okay. That's better.